a 6'2", I reckon Harry would have been at least, into a barrel, and it sat there when we go up and went on sick parade. There was Harry's barrel with him in it. How they trust him, so they'd have to break his back to get him to the orders. Had to do that.
Our own
orders. Our orders had to do that.
Yes.
And that sat there until they decided when they'd take him away to the crematorium. And I can remember I was going on sick parade and to think that Harry was in that barrel, you know, it was a terrible feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Edgar Wilkie, I believe you knew him too.
I didn't actually know him, but what happened was that when I got kicked in the nuts and they laid me out, because this chap, he's certain chaps, if they took a dislike to you, they would always sort of pin you out. And this Chinless Wonder, we called him, he had a grouch on me, and the day I ran, if you could get out onto the road and get to a certain posse on the road, you knew if you lined up in that area, you would have the good chance that you'd get picked to go work on the wharf, unloading ships, which was a good thing, because but then you had to run the risk you might get unloading coal or stone or rubber, you name it. You didn't know what was on the ships, but then there was always the chance it was a ship where they were unloading stuff you could eat, and one of the main things you could eat was sugar, and they used to blow the bugle. One bugle was a warning, 5-minute warning, and 2 bugles you had to be out on the parade. Well, of course the bugle went and I was out the gate, and this Chinless Wonder was waiting for me to kick me further in the nuts and laid me out. And I was taken to hospital, up the hospital, and there was a big kerfuffle about it. And this Nelson that took a liking to me when I worked out at the graphite factory, he used to get me to carry his rifle. And then at lunchtime when lunchtime came, he'd come and call me aside, and he'd got the midday meal that was offered to him, he'd give it to me, and then he'd get on the push bike and ride over to Toya Steel and have his lunch over there, and I'd have the good meal that was being dished up to him by Showadenki to me. Well, when this other nip, Chinless Wonder, laid me out, when I was laying up in the hospital, and up comes Nelson, we called him, a packet of cigarettes for me, and said that, let me know that Chinless Wonder was no good for what he'd done for me. Well, Edgar Wilkie was he was in having treatment from Clive Boyce for his, it was like a pneumonia, I think it was, he had too. He used to have his chest drained. Yeah, that was how I know about Edgar Wilkie. He was in the hospital at the same time as I was when I got laid out. But no, there's quite a few things happened. There's different nips in Japan, like the doctor, the mad doctor. He was another one that was hard to fathom. He bashed guys up for nothing at all. And yet he could talk a bit of English. He thought he was crash out because he spoke a few words of English, and he bashed people unmercifully. You would rather go to work when he was Jap officer in command of the camp at the time. You'd rather go to work than stay in, have a day off. The things he used to make you do. You'd have like say there was 4 sections on our floor. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3 and Section 4. You'd have them all as all numbering in Japanese, and he'd be yelling out more louder, and you just imagine there's 30 to a section, all yelling out, then he'd race up the stairs to the next floor and he'd have them run on the spot, Then he'd run up to the next floor and he'd have the pommy guys up in the next floor doing something. Then he'd come race back down to try and catch you, see if he was still numbering. It would rather have been at work. It was really shocking things he made you do. Then on an icy cold day, he'd take you out on the road and make you strip off, freezing cold, strip off, and it got like a donut. It was steel brush with a piece of rope on either side of it, and you rub yourself, you'd rub the skin off, and your back, itchy knee, go, itchy knee, itchy knee, 1, 2, 1, 2, and you doing push-ups on the ground, on the floor, and that was he was the one that this day, Private Sergeant James, I can't think of his Chrissy name now, Sergeant James used to be that nervous. So he had been number 1. He couldn't get number 1 out, and he'd bash him. Well, he have this. The sword was still being the scabbard. He whack him on the. But this cat, a cat rubs it alongside you. He whipped out the sword and whipped the cat's tail off. And these Japs, young kids that are up in this park I was telling you about, where they used to put it up for certain parades, they all started to laugh, and he raced up after them, his sword, and there's a small tree, and he lopped the top off the tree.
And this is the Japanese doctor?
He was,
Was he prosecuted after the war?
Yeah, they hung him apparently.
Did they?
Yeah, according to, so I've got it somewhere where different ones that got sentences, he was hung.
Did you have to prepare an affidavit about him, or?
I can't remember what I had on my affidavit, but I think I got a copy of it. Yeah. Oh yeah, he bashed me up. I was washing my clothes, and he was drunk. All he had on was his fundushi, and of course I didn't realise it was him, because he was just had his fundushi on. I didn't know he wasn't in his uniform, and he spun me around and whacked me in the jaw and side of the face, because I didn't carry to him. But he wasn't dressed. He was just in a wooden clogs and his fundushi.
Was that in the bathhouse?
Just that.
Yeah, sorry, but where did that occur? Was that in the bathhouse?
Down below on the where there used to be a trough where you could wash your clothes.
Yes.
And then the bathroom was another time when we used to work unloading the coal and you used to get placards and covered in dust, and we decided we were going to have a wash, even though it was winter time. This guy, the place was locked. This Aussie guy could pick locks. He picked the lock when, of course, this mad doctor was on duty. Unbeknown to us, he must have known that we were in there, and in he came. Luckily, he kept the sword in the scabbard, but under the shower, he had to stand there and make me bow to him. More carry, and the bloody icy cold water's pouring down on top of him, and he's whacking across the backside with the sword. That's the sort of bloke he was.
Now, can you remember when you started to become aware that the war was going against Japan, and that, was the bombing by the Americans of the Kobe area?
Oh, yeah, well, we realised that things were starting to come our way, because a plane used to come over, and he used to be that high up that the Jap planes couldn't get anywhere near him, a spotter plane. And before he went, he'd drop a bomb, and we were lucky that one day he dropped the bomb and it landed, I suppose, about 100 metres away from where we were, and you could have buried a truck in it. Huge truck, the hole it made, but it was that clay sort of soil, and nobody got hurt. But we realised, that they were these planes were coming in every day. It was